Hi, I'm Karl Taylor. Welcome to Visual Education Live. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight is all about legs. And we don't have 2 legs, we actually have 4. We've got 2 models. This is Georgie. Georgie's friend Amelia is our second model, who's going to be wearing some fishnet stockings and different tights as well. But first of all, with Georgie, I wanted to demonstrate some of the physics of the lighting that we need to talk about, because legs are quite a difficult subject to shoot. They're quite interesting to shoot as well. I shoot a lot of beauty, a lot of fashion, and you've seen me use parabolic lighting, softboxes, all sorts of stuff for that. But lighting and shooting legs is quite particular. For me, shooting legs is about contouring the shape of the legs. We're dealing with a cylinder. Okay, essentially a cylinder, and what we want to do is see that three-dimensionality and that shape to the legs, but we've got other issues to do with skin and shoes and poses and all these other factors that come into the mix. So in tonight's show, we're going to try and show you a little bit about the lighting that I would like to use, the style I want to use. And then we're going to show you some of the leg poses that we've configured that we think look attractive that you could try to replicate as well. You'll also be pleased to hear that the setup for the lighting that we're going to end up with on this is very, very simple. Rim lighting legs from the back with edge lighting I don't think is a good idea. Lighting from the side on legs can also cause some problems unless it's very, very soft light. But if you try to light from the side with harder light, you can run into trouble. Then we're going to look at some of the different moisturisers that you can apply if you want to add sheen to the legs as well. Right, and as usual, we have Emma on questions over there, so she can take your questions. So without further ado, let's just have a quick look at what we've got set up so far, so you don't feel that we've missed any stages. Here I've got 2 blocks. These are my standard 40 centimetre square by about 80 centimetre long blocks. I've got 2 lying down side by side, and I've put a piece of white acrylic on top. White gloss acrylic. If you're watching in America, that's called Macrolon. Other places it's called Perspex. This is just 3mm white gloss acrylic. Just gives a nice reflection of the boots in the surface. It also means we don't have the join in the middle on the top surface, so just a piece of acrylic cut out. We've got our background, which is our white cove wall. That could be a roll of white paper, could be a white plain wall. We've just put a couple of Octabox 75s, one either side, to give an even spread of light to illuminate that area behind. Now, my first choice of lighting for this type of shot would be either parabolic or ring flash. And the reasons for that is obviously a ring flash goes on here around the camera lens. It's very frontal directional, as frontal as you can get, casts no shadow on the model. A ring flash is very expensive, or certainly the ring flash that I would like to use. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an alternative to the ring flash that costs $200, works just as well, if not better. On top of the ring flash, we're going to look at a small softbox option. We're going to look at a standard P70 reflector option as well, which also works really well. Right, let's get started. What we're going to do with the first pose, if you could just adopt the first pose for me. So I'm looking for a shot that's from here up to about here, and we just want to get a little bit of shape on the legs. So Georgie's bending that leg in, she's putting a bit of pressure onto the foot, onto the toe here. I want to see a little bit of this heel, this stiletto, and I'm going to hopefully see a tiny bit of this. This leg we're going to probably try and keep a bit straighter. But before we bring the main light in, we're just going to do a test. Shooting our first test shot, which is just the background only. And you can see we get a nice shape on the legs. I'm at f11 on 100 ISO. And I'm using an 80mm fixed lens, which is equivalent to a 50mm fixed lens in 35mm full frame format. We're definitely into pure white there, or just below pure white, which is where I want to be, okay? We don't want to take it to pure white straight away, because we're going to add frontal lighting on here, which is going to add a little bit more light to the background. I always prefer to stay a little bit below pure white, because it's very easy to pull those white levels up a little bit if we need to afterwards. Right, first light we're going to demonstrate is the light that I would have chosen to use, which would be the ring flash. And the ring flash gives it a very sort of voyeuristic pop art style punchy look to it, especially good when you start to put the glossy moisturisers on the legs as well, because it picks up the sheen. The problem is, as the team here pointed out to me, they said, Karl, do you realistically believe that everyone is going to have a $4,500 Broncolor ring flash at their disposal? And I said, no, probably not. So let's find a way of getting exactly the same look with a much less expensive modifier, and we've done that, we've worked it out, we've tested it, and we're going to show you as well. Now the ring flash, as many of you know, just sits in front of the lens. Now I'm not going to rig it up attached to the camera. Normally you'd have it on the base plate and you could actually move around and the ring flash and camera all one unit, but just for this purpose, Ashley's just going to hold it over the lens. Perfect. Let's take a test shot there. Right, so here's our first shot. Now look at that lighting. That is really, really beautiful in terms of the contouring that we're getting from that ring flash. So you can see how the light falls off at the sides of the legs here, the inside of the leg here, sides and sides. And that gives us that definition, that contrast that separates it and gives the leg some shape. And you can see, because the light's so directional, we don't get any shadows. If we turn the background lights off, this is interesting with the shadows. Watch this with a ring flash. Let me turn these off a moment. If you pop that in front of there, I'll just trigger it from here this time. And we'll have a look at the shadows this time. And you'll see the shadows on the wall look a bit weird, okay? That's ring flash shadow. When you have got obviously a darker background, you get this strange halo effect with the shadow around the legs. But given that we've got a white background, we don't have to worry about it. So you can see here in the previous shot with the white background, there is no shadows. Now that for me is great, because I don't have to worry about anything else other than creating a pure white background, getting a nice set of legs, nice set of shoes, and shooting with an on-camera ring flash. And because all that lighting is frontal, it actually is very flattering on the legs. It becomes a lot less flattering when we start to take the light around at an angle. And Georgie doesn't mind us doing it, so she's gonna let us do it. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on to a Softbox, and then onto a P70, and then I'm gonna show you the final solution that matches, if not betters, the ring flash and is much, much less expensive. We're going to move on with the ring flash just to the right here, please, about there. And let's look at the difference that by going off direction and aimed at Georgie's legs and shoot. Now let's look at the lighting now. There. Now here's the problem. This is what starts to happen. We have still got the contouring, but then we start to reveal texture, and we don't want texture. Okay, look at the knees are starting to pick up texture. We're starting to get unwanted shadows in areas that we don't want, and that is not what we want. Now, if we go back and compare that to the frontal direction, we don't get that at all. Go around a little bit further, and it'll get even worse, okay? Okay, here we go. Now, this will get worse and worse. So as we've gone round even further now, so that was the one before this one. That's front on, and that's where we are now. So you see all that extra texture that's coming in, which we certainly don't want. And that's obviously when it's completely frontal. Right, let's switch over to the softbox now. So directional softbox, straight in from above towards our model. So it's frontal, shoot. Let's look at the result. There we go. Right, now, it's not bad, but it has a lack of bite. And it also changes the color. We've lost that sort of punch. That's what we had with the ring flash. Very dramatic, sort of contrasty, punchy bite look to the pictures. And then with the softbox, we get that. And it starts to look a bit grubby. But something about the lighting just doesn't have that same clarity of bite to it. We're now going to show you another option that's relatively inexpensive and actually works quite well, but it's still not going to be our best option. So our next option is a standard P70 reflector is obviously like a small, very small parabolic reflector, and we're going to use that just above camera. Right, okay, so here's a P70. What is a P70? P70 is just a standard, bog standard reflector you get from most lighting brands. This is going to throw out a huge amount of light because they're very efficient. I'm going to take 2 stops off just to begin with, and this is directly above camera again. That's it, here we go. Let's have a look at the lighting on this one. We'll compare, it's got that high sheen contrast, and we'll compare it to the ring flash, but it doesn't look as good as the ring flash. You can see there, it's almost too much bite, too much contrast. It looks a bit glary, and the definition on the knees, for whatever reason, because we probably got this slightly above direction, isn't working as well as we were getting with the ring flash, okay? So, where does that leave us? How do I get you out of the scenario of having to use a $4,500 ring flash to something more affordable that looks like the ring flash? Well, there's the answer, right up there. A Focus 110 umbrella. So it's like a parabolic umbrella, not a true parabolic para, like some of our other paras. It's a cheap alternative to a para, costs about $220. So an easy to use modifier. And if we use it in the hard position, we essentially end up with almost like a ring flash inside it. There it is, right, there you can see it. You can see what looks like a ring flash, those brighter specks that are in the center, going around the center there. And then you've still got a little bit of additional light spreading out beyond that. But it's those sort of pockets of little points of light source in there that are kind of emulating a ring flash, but obviously on a bigger scale. So what we decided to do was to use this in a position as close to a ring flash type direction as we could. We can't put it in front of the camera because we'll obviously be blocking the view. So all we can do with it is put it close behind the camera, but because it's so much bigger, and going back to the earlier question about the beauty dish, because this is bigger than a beauty dish, it means I can still get down here and probably shoot from in front of it. And let's take a look at the lighting we get with this. Let's get down into position and let's see what we've got. Right, here we are. Let's take a look at this. So this is the Focus 110 umbrella from just behind me. And if we compare that to the ring flash, you can see it's almost identical. There's the Focus 110, lovely contouring and shadows off the side of the leg. There's the ring flash shot. So there's your solution if you want to do this in a sort of smaller studio space with less expensive equipment. Now, a couple more things before we swap models. We want to look at moisturisers on the legs. So the first one we're going to use is something called Body Butter. Now we use this a lot. It adds a slight sheen to the skin without going crazy. So Georgie's going to apply that, and Ashley's going to help her with that. Okay, so let's take a look at the result, compare, now that we've got the Body Butter on the shot, and shoot, and we should see a little bit more of a glow. Not a lot, but a tiny bit more of a sheen on there. It's not as emphasized as much as I would like, because Georgie's skin is actually quite naturally healthy and shiny anyway. If we want to gloss it up even more, we can move on to baby oil. And baby oil can go too extreme, okay? But we're going to go extreme. But the good thing with baby oil is you can dry it back a little bit with some tissue and cloth. So baby oil is going to be the next one. Right, okay, we're into the high gloss baby oil now. And boom, let's have a look how glossy this is. There, right, so very, very shiny. We've got some real high gloss. Way too much on the shins, but this is now where you can knock it back.
I've got a question here from Christoph,
yep.
And he says, hi Karl, would a polarizing filter control shine without messing with the skin tones?
No, it would control shine for sure, but skin goes really weird with polarizing filters. Georgie, thank you very much. That was great. And we're going to bring Amelia in. She's got even longer legs. Why don't you check out visualeducation.com? It's the world's leading visual arts education platform. The video you're watching right now is just highlights from one of our many live shows. And during our live shows, our students can ask questions and interact so that they can further enhance their knowledge of lighting. Join us at visualeducation.com. She's going to hop up onto here. We're going to try and do a shot with the legs in the air as our first one. I'm going to use the same lighting setup. Just got to reposition my camera. Are you all right like that for a minute? So I'm sticking with the 80mm lens. So we're going to angle that up, bring it in square on behind camera. Same lighting setup. And we're going to shoot that on the white. Let's take a look. There we go. Right, look at that lovely shape on the legs. Look at that lovely contour lighting. Now the contouring is further amplified by the tights, because what's happening is obviously the tights are dark skin. So the darker skin now is amplifying the shadow on the edges. Let's just look at that again, Ben. So you see this detail in here now gives us that darker tone. So these tights do a fantastic job. One, in giving us that little bit of sheen on the legs. Two, giving us that extra shade and tone on the legs. Now, obviously we've got Amelia's hands in there, but we can quite easily crop this shot by just taking that up to there. And then you've got a great leg shot and a great pose. Right, now what if we wanted to change this up just a little bit? So we've gone with pure white at the moment. We're going to change it now to a graduation. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn these two lights off, and we're going to swap over to a 30 by 120 softbox from behind, low down. We're looking to get a graduation up here. Here we go. And shoot. Now let's have a look at the background. Now we just got that lovely soft gradation running up the background. So you see that gradation from here. We can pull the crop down a little bit further there. And if we look here, you can see that gradation running up there, and then it goes to grey. Now if we compare that to before, that's when we had pretty much a pure white before, and now we've got a gradation. It's almost like an anti-rim lighting, okay? Because we're going frontal, so we end up with shadow on the side of the legs rather than rim lighting the legs. We're going to change it around, so if you could kindly switch into the fishnet stockings, please. Look at this setup, right? What have we got here? A Focus 110 umbrella and one softbox at the background, okay? Don't be giving me all that "you've got too much kit" nonsense for this shoot, okay? I've delivered an amazingly executed leg shot for you that looks very stylish with two lights, okay? One key light, one background light. Right, let's crack on before we run out of time. Amelia did a fantastically quick change into the fishnet stockings. Georgie's good at positioning her friend's legs around. And we've still got the graduated light on the background. Shoot, let's take a look at that. So you can see the fishnet stockings, let's compare. But let's just compare the fishnet stockings to the denier stockings. It's obviously a lot darker. The fishnet stockings reveal a lot more of the leg skin tone, but we still keep those dark contours. The dark contours are exaggerated and emphasized, if you like, by the fishnet stockings themselves and the black fabric. Right. Now, there's another shape that worked really well, which is actually on the floor. Now, this shot, here's another, right, this is the shot. There's the visual. Let's see if you can get in on that. There's the visual of the shape I like on those legs. That was another shot on the iPhone that we just did as a test, okay? Just to find shapes that worked. Now, interestingly, that shot on the floor, but it shot that way up. So it was that way, but we found when we turned the shot upside down, it looked better, okay? So, Amelia, you have to do that on the floor. So spin around a bit more, keep going. Right, okay, good. That looks pretty good. Let's just shoot that first. I'll have to uncrop it. I'm going to rotate it. That's the way I just shot it, I believe. Yes, that is the way I shot it. The crop was slightly out, so that's a really nice shape to the legs in the fishnet stockings just on the floor. But as I said to you, when we did it and we looked at it, we actually thought it worked better upside down. So, you know, there's an option for you as well to consider. Plain white floor, nothing else to it. Plain white floor, fishnet stockings, single Focus 110 umbrella. Right, next one. What have we got next for the next legs pose? Let's have a look at that. Looks nice. And we're going to just see how that works. Okay, refocus on the fishnet and shoot. Lovely shape on the legs again. And there you go, we've got another really sort of sexy shape on the legs just from using the block. We've got one more to show with a different lighting setup. We're going to change the lighting completely to a single Frontal spotlight. We're not going to have a background at all to begin with. So we're going to turn the background lights off. And we're just going to go, let's have a look at it. This is just a little Pico light with a Frontal. You can get Frontal modifiers for most brands alike. And we're going to use it like a little spotlight coming in on our model from about here, I think. So I'm going to turn that the other way a moment and aim maybe just about here. That's it. Right. Now, this gives a little bit more of a sort of seductive feel to the light. And this is a lovely shape again for the legs. Let's just shoot it and see. So one light at the moment. There we go. We're going to need to add certainly a background light in now, but you can see what one little point light source does. I'm going to put those back on and pop that in. Let's have a look what happens with the background. Right, so there you can see lovely leg shape, little bit of greyness into the background now. Another nice little shape. Hopefully we crammed quite a lot there into an hour and 20 minutes on this show. Gives you some good ideas on effective lighting that is affordable, and also hopefully gives you some great ideas on poses that you can try with your girlfriend, partner, wife, or some random stranger you ask to come and model for you off the street like we did here. Thank you very much to Georgie and to Amelia and to Ashley. I'm Karl Taylor. This is Visual Education Live. We'll see you next time.